Welcome. All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome to another week in space. I am your host with the most, Joan Emerson Bell, the blind stallion space wizard. And yeah, I like to come at you every Monday morning around this time, just, about 11 a.m. Mountain Time, about 10 a.m. Pacific Time, about 1 p.m. Eastern Time, to tell you about what's going on in space, to give you your weekly astro weather report. Good morning, Gina Maria. Good to see you, my friend. Um, and yeah, I like to do this as a way of kind of understanding the influences of the planetary archetypes and the ways that their relationships in space can mirror our relationships down here on Earth. And the ways that we can show up for the opportunities, for the challenges, for the madcap hilarity that these celestial bodies have written for us. And I think that my sort of conception of how this works is not that the planets are making us do things, but that we are kind of arising and co-creating in a field, in a interconnected web of life. And so the relationships that the planets are having tends to mirror the situations that are arising both on an internal level within our internal like part system, if you want to think about it that way, and also our external relationships with each other. And as the old alchemical and hermetic saying goes, as above, so below, so above, right? So we are, as the larger systems are impacting our kind of microcosm, right? And then our internal systems, what's happening in our inner worlds is also impacting our outer worlds, which is also impacting the greater world, which I also think has an effect at a planetary level. And yeah, because it's Sagittarius season, I seem to be glowing, which is right on brand. So that's good. We've got quite a week in space that's going on coming up. I'll jump into that in a moment. Before I do, though, a little announcement. Next week, I'm going to be doing this show on Sunday, I think around 2 p.m. Mountain Time, making that 1 p.m. Pacific Time, making that 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I think that's what I'm going to do. Monday is my birthday, and I don't want to work on my birthday. I want to just enjoy my life. So I'm going to try and get this show out Sunday. I'll put something in my stories on Instagram, letting you know what time I arrive on. But 2 p.m. on a Sunday for me sounds good. So mark your calendars, set your Apple Watches for that. And yeah, I will see you all on Sunday for the show. I'll make another announcement at the end. And yeah, other than that, yeah, as I hurtle towards another solar return, let's get into the astrology of the week. And like I said, this is a big week. We're talking about December the 2nd, which, wow, that's today, going all the way to Sunday, December the 8th. So, kicking us off Monday, December the 2nd, we have Venus in Capricorn trine Uranus, or Uranus, as we like to say, in Taurus at 24 degrees and 36 arc minutes of these Earth signs. So, one of the ways that I like to think about Uranus is as this kind of like idealized perfect vision, right? It is the thing that we are perfecting. It is the thing that exists outside of Saturnian reality, right? As the kind of geometric form, the like perfect mathematics, the thing that everything like kind of doesn't live up to, but we're still striving for it. Right. Venus deals with relationships and our value system, right? In the mythology, Ouranos, the sky god, is the sort of father of Venus, right? As the story goes, Saturn castrates Uranus or Uranus, right? Throws his junk into the ocean, and Venus is born from the castration foam, right? So there is this special relationship between Uranus, Uranus, the sky god, and Venus. And one of the ways that we can think about this right, is Oranos is sky, right? They were married to Gaia, Earth, right? So there's this relationship between the sky and the Earth, right? This is sort of our world, right? Is Gaia, Earth, and Oranos sky, and we are existing in the realms in between these, and in a lot of ways, we are sort of balancing them, right? Um, Venus is the principle of love or the principle of attraction, right? Born from these primordial forces, from this primordial chaos, right? And so Venus, the attractive principle, holds everything together, right? This is the gravitational force of the world and also the gravitational force of attraction, right? The things that we're like, oh, I kind of like that, right? We find ourselves drawn to. It is, the our social circle, our kind of orbit, right? It is all the gravitational force of attraction, not necessarily sexual attraction, right? We can be attracted to ideas, we can be attracted to people, we can be attracted to charisma, right? All of these things, right? And then we have Oranos, right, as this, or Uranus as the sky god, the idealized perfection. And in this trine, right, which is a harmonious relationship where there's a flow, right, we have this kind of flow between the perfect vision, right, of this is the idealized vision of love, right, or relationship, or this how I want to feel. And then we have our terrestrial experience of that, right? And how it feels to be in actual relationship with people, right? And so I think that these things kind of inform each other through this trine, right? How can our idealized love be informed by our actual relationships and our physical connection with people? And how can these physical relationships inform and help our idealized vision of love and relationship to evolve? Right. And Uranus is also the light bringer, right? And there's a way of thinking about this planetary archetype as Prometheus, who brings stolen fire to Earth, right? So that we can all have fire and microchips and computers and whatnot, right? And right, so it brings this sort of like element that helps us to progress and evolve, right? And so there is something liberating and freeing, and that provokes change that Oranos or Uranus or Prometheus brings into the system, right? And so this also helps our values and our ideals of love and like what we think is possible in love and how we allow ourselves to love and do relationship. This allows them to kind of grow and evolve based on the sort of solar fire, right? This, not the astrology program, but the kind of inspiration that Uranus brings. And I think with the harmonious relationship, this can be very beneficial because it's like, okay, like this is what we're doing, this is how we are, this is how I love, this is what I'm attracted to. And also, like, how can this change and how can I allow myself to change to move more towards an ideal, right? That helps me to break free of maybe some of the cultural conditioning or social expectations that prevent me from maybe living up to the ideal of how I want to love and how I want to be loved, right? And with the trine, this is nice because it kind of prevents us from blowing things up. Uranus can be very like flipping the table energy, right? And in a harder aspect, it can be like, I don't like this, right? And like flip the table and storm out, right? I'm looking for something better. But with the trine, it's this harmonious flow between what our ideals are and and how that informs our values and how we can do relationship in ways that feel more supportive, right? And how we can draw towards us things that we value, because Venus also deals with our values. And one of the things that we can think about is how the ethic of love, right? How our belief in love, whatever that means to you, can inform our value system, right? And how we can make choices that are in alignment with this sort of idealized ethic of love, right? One way that we can think about this is like, I want to do things that feel good and also do not harm other people, right? That can be like an ethic of love that one chooses to live by, right? And so, how do we make choices that help us to live by the love ethic that we construct in our lives and that help us to live more authentic and genuine lives based on our value system and how that can be supported by the things that feel good, right? And drawing us towards what feels good and towards our kind of ideal of the world that we want to live in, right? And I think that this harmonious relationship between the idealized vision of Uranus and our value system of Venus can really help us to consider that this week, because man, this week is going to be challenging. I tell you what. We're going to jump along to Wednesday, December the 4th, when Mercury in Gatorade in Sagittarius is going to oppose Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. This is going down at 16 degrees and 44 arc minutes of these mutable signs. So this opposition occurred back on November the 18th at 18 degrees and 48 minutes of Sagittarius and Gemini, right? And then Mercury stationed retrograde on November the 25th. And now they're coming back again for a second pass, right? And then Mercury will station direct on December the 15th at 6 degrees of Sagittarius. And then come around to oppose Jupiter again on December the 26th. So this is sort of the middle of this opposition, of this multiple opposition adventure that we're going through. And lucky for us, Saturn is going to be squaring this whole mess this week. So this is really like the heart, this tension, right? Where not only do we have this second pass of Mercury and Jupiter, both retrograde, both in detriment, both in mutual reception, meaning they're in each other's signs, they're also being squared by Saturn, who has a restrictive, constrictive, limiting effect, which can be helpful and also be challenging. But let's break it down right here, right? So, yeah, this opposition is also happening along with the Mercury cazimi, which is occurring on Thursday, December the 5th, which is Mercury conjunct the Sun. So the Sun is all up involved in this situationship as well, right? And so let's just talk about that for a minute. We'll get more into it when we get to the 5th, but Mercury conjunct the Sun can illuminate some hidden parts of ourselves, right? The Kazemi moment, which is coming into the heart of the Sun, Mercury, the messenger, right, going into the heart of the Sun, being opposed by Jupiter, gives us the opportunity to sort of integrate some of these parts that are coming up, right, that are being revealed by the light of the Sun. Um, yeah, so like with an opposition, we have Mercury and the Sun on one hand and Jupiter on the other, right? With an opposition, there is this tension point, this sort of like sense of projection. And we may have these kind of hidden things being illuminated, right? Mercury is our cognitive processes. It is our how we process information. It is our ability to kind of break things down and understand things and communicate what we are understanding. And as that conjuncts the Sun, it like brings things to light. And so information is coming to light. And then this is being opposed by Jupiter. So we may be projecting things outwards, right? Oh, that's not me. Oh, this thing just came to light. That can't be me. That's you, right? That's them. That's it, right? But how do we kind of re-own these projections, or how do we kind of welcome in these parts of ourselves that we want to reject or disown or that make us feel uncomfortable, right? So this is an opportunity to sort of integrate some of the information that is coming up. And I think with the Jupiter-Mercury opposition, this is an opportunity to practice the alchemical union of the opposites, right? Being able to hold the tension between two different things until we are able to find a way to kind of bring them together and create a secret third thing. Or in the transcendent principle in Jungian psychology, it is the being able to hold this tension of the opposites until the third until the transcendent function, the kind of way through emerges, right? And so instead of trying to live in the black and white, right, which is a very two-dimensional way of seeing the world, we get to notice what we are kind of outsourcing or rejecting or refusing, and learn to kind of welcome it or learn to at least hold it, right? Until something else comes about, something that helps us to like sit with both of these things and ideally create this sort of alchemical union between the this and the that, the black and the white, the self and other, right? Until we can kind of bring them together, right? And and I think that this opposition reminds us that nothing is actually black and white, right? And nothing means just one thing, right? Jupiter through Gemini is about contradiction and multiplicity, right? Nothing is two-dimensional. Everything is multifaceted. And so, this can be like rather chaotic because all of this sort of information and splitting and wanting to like separate out and trying to make sense of all of this information is that's been sort of the process that we've been going through over the past year as Jupiter's kind of making their way through Gemini and the kind of multi-faceted multiplicity of Gemini and all of the information. Jupiter is about coherence. Jupiter is making an overarching narrative, right, that wants to make sense of all the information that they are getting. And that can be really difficult when more information just keeps pouring in, right? And humans are meaning making machines, right? We want to know what's going on. And we make up stories to justify what's happening, right? We connect the dots, we make things make sense, right? And so we are kind of constantly scanning for information, right? About our world, about our environment, about our relationships, right? And then we are taking these bits of information, these disparate bits of information, and making coherent stories that explain what's happening. And this is kind of what I'm doing here, right? I have information from the cosmos and I am making a story about it because I'm like, this makes sense. This puts like a chaotic world into a nice little package that I can understand and feel better about myself, right? And maybe this is helping you to feel better about your world. And if so, that's great, right? But I think this is part of the way that we survive in the world is through making meaning of all of the information that we're gathering. And here's an example, right? Of our kind of meaning making and our survival impulses and how this is locked, right? Say you go into work and somebody like your manager looks at you kind of weird, right? And so immediately we're like, oh, that person looked at me kind of weird. I might get fired, right? I'm in danger of losing my job. I might get fired. And then our mind starts spiraling out, right, into storytelling, right? If I lose my job, I'm going to lose my house, then I'm going to be homeless, and then I'm going to die alone in the gutter, right? I mean, that's where my mind goes, right? So like, how do I kind of respond to this? Immediately, I need to like start looking for another job, or I need to suck up to my boss and like try and throw that manager under the bus, right? So that I can protect myself, right? And I think this is sort of the way that Jupiter in Gemini functions. And this is also this opposition with Mercury, who is like, oh, I want more information. I want more information. I'm breaking this down. I'm breaking this down to like get the like pieces to make the meaning. Right. And so they're working kind of like at cross purposes or in this opposition of like, breaking things down and making meaning and then breaking things down and making meaning. And one of the ways that we can look at this is through CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. There's this ABC model, right? I know I just threw a bunch of letters at you, but we can think about it like this, right? There is an activating event, right? Someone looked at me weird, right? And then that brings us to B, the belief about the event. This person looked at me weird, and that means that I'm going to be fired, right? So this activating event, person looked at me weird when I came into work, activates this belief about the event, right? Triggering underlying ideas of scarcity and self-worth. I'm not good enough, they're going to fire me, right? Which brings us to C, the consequences, right? So these are the actions that we take based on the A stimulus, right? And our underlying belief system about the stories that we tell ourselves about the world, B, right? So in this case, it could be looking for another job or trying to get in the boss's good graces to protect our position. Good morning, Jeff. Nice to see you. So with the like Jupiter, Mercury, both in retrograde, in opposition, in detriment, right, in mutual reception, we get this opportunity to observe the stories we are constructing and the conclusions we are jumping to. Right. Mercury is about breaking things down and analyzing them and digesting that information. Jupiter is about like taking all of that information and creating this coherent narrative structure, right? Because we have this negativity bias. All humans have this, right? This is a way that we survive. We're constantly scanning for threat. It is, what's his name? Oh, Daniel Siegel says that our brains are like Velcro for bad experiences and Teflon for good experiences, right? And so we have to like really like sit with good experience. With bad experience, we're like, oh, there it is, bad experience, right? I knew it. I knew it, right? We also have a confirmation bias, right? That backs up the information that we have about like bad stories, right? Like, oh, like I'm scanning for danger, there is danger, I knew it was going to be there, right? So we're looking for information that tells us that like that person's out to get us or this isn't going to work, right? So this opposition as well as the retrogrades give us a chance to rethink the stories we are constructing and the meanings that we are making from the information that we are gathering, right? And how can we be with the information we are gathering without jumping to conclusions? Because this is not jumping to conclusion time, okay? So, like, how do we slow down this ABC process, the activating event, the belief about the activating event, and then the consequences, right? And integrate some, like, interrogate some of our underlying belief system, right? Because I think the B is really the issue, right? A thing happens, and then we, like, have all of this programmed knowledge and experience about this thing, which makes us jump to conclusions, which makes us, take actions which may not be aligned with what's actually happening. Jumping back to the example of that person who looked at us weird, like maybe that person, was having a rough day. Maybe like a friend of theirs is sick, right? Maybe they had indigestion, right? Maybe they're worried about their cat. Like you don't know, right? And immediately we're like, oh my God, that's about me. And I'm about to get fired and I'm about to be homeless, right? And so how do we like really slow this down and like rethink what's going on here? All right. Can we gather new information that allows us to shift the underlying belief system so that we can start creating new consequences for our actions? Right. And again, Saturn is squaring this whole mess, right? And Saturn deals with consequences. Saturn makes stuff real, right? We can go through whatever, like, sort of unhinged storytelling that we want in our minds, right? But it's not until we take an action that things start to, that becomes real, right? And there are consequences to the unhinged storytelling, right? So astrologically, this seems like a pretty good formula to be working with now, the A plus B equals C, right? Or the ABC formula, right? So we can think about what is the information that I'm taking in, right? What is the meaning that I am making from it? And what are the underlying beliefs that are like really supporting the meaning or like shading the meaning or skewing the meaning, right? And so how can I create ideal consequences through conscious action? Because if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you always get, right? If we are operating on old, yeah, A plus B equals Saturn. Exactly, exactly. I love that. Right. So if we are operating on old sort of belief systems that may have come from our parents, may have come from intergenerational trauma, may come from scarcity, may come from feelings of lacking self-worth. If we are operating on these belief systems and that is the filter that we're processing information through, our consequences are going to be based on these old models or old belief systems. And this is an opportunity to kind of gather new information that helps us to interrogate these belief systems so we can start writing new formulas. um, Okay. Yeah, somebody saying that they had a huge argument with their mom about her belief system that most royalty leaders in history are bad, right? Yeah, and so like if we take that like leaders are bad right, that's going to skew our position, and that's going to kind of curtail our ability to allow new information to come in, because like every time it's like, oh, you're a leader, you're bad, right? That's a thing, that's bad, right? I can't believe that. I can't trust that. Right. Which, may keep us safe, right? And that may be like a hill that we're willing to die on, but that also really shifts the experience that we're able to have in the world, and the ways that we're able to show up and the things that we're going to allow ourselves to have. Um, Yeah, somebody said their mama 555 said maladaptive, right? And like, maladaptive, but also these are survival strategies. And again, we have these negativity bias, right? Like we have gotten this far because we're like, danger there, I'm not going over there. And now I'm making a mental model that tells me like that thing over there is always going to be dangerous, right? And this is like one of the ways that we've survived. And now, I think that we have an opportunity because we are not living as like hunter gatherers or like subsistence farming, or many of us aren't, that we have the opportunity to kind of like take a beat and analyze, right, some of the data that's coming in and be like, oh, how do I want to respond to this, right? Okay, so also Wednesday, December the 4th, we have the Sun in Sagittarius squaring Saturn in Pisces. This is happening at 13 degrees and 1 arc minute of these mutable signs. So, right, this is all kind of like lumped on top of each other. This Mercury Jupiter opposition, right? And the Sun Saturn square, it's all like happening pretty tightly together, right? So Saturn consequences, right? Limitations, discipline, dedication, maturity, right? All of these very noble, right? These difficult, unfun things, right? The Sun is our identity and sense of self, right? It's what we are striving for, how we want to shine our light into the world, right? And so with a square, which is a hard aspect, right? These things are in cross purposes. So the Sun is like, this is me, like, look at me, world. And Saturn's like, sit down. No one wants to hear that, right? Do your work, eat your vegetables, right? Which, vegetables are good for the body, right? Helping you to shine your light over the long term, but, maybe that's not what you want to do in this moment. And I think a lot of this sort of tension of these cross purposes is the Sun being like, I'm here, look at me, I'm here now, this is what I want to do. And Saturn is like, what about like next week, next year, 10 years from now, 100 years from now, right? So like it's this balance between the right now and the long term, right? And the kind of Saturnian influence telling us to sit down and eat our vegetables can make us feel restricted, right? It can also make us feel like we're not good enough, right? Our solar light is not good enough to get us out of eating vegetables, right? Or not exercising or not doing the responsible things that we need to do, right? Or that the things that we want to do are not going to work, right? Saturn is asking for patience, right? Saturn helps us to make things real, and we make things real through dedication, right? It is like whatever we want to bring into this world, like we have to be dedicated to do it. And this happens on a very small level, right? I can want to take a drink of my energy beverage, right, really badly, but until I like move my arm and take the action to do it, like nothing is going to happen. This is, move like my muscles moving my bones, which is Saturnian, right? It is the thought, the idea, right? Who I want to be, how I want to show up, right? But like that means absolutely nothing until I take action to make it real, right? So we have to be kind of dedicated to the actions that we want to take, right? That's a pretty easy one, right? But being a internet astrologer, for example, right? I have to be dedicated to show up every week to do this, right? To build a following. I have to do my research so I don't fall flat, right? It is the things that It is the creation of that solar identity through the hard work and dedication and repeated action that like actually brings this into the world and makes something lasting, right? And without that, like it's just an idea, right? And so, with the sun is, this idea of like how we shine our light. And this is a way that I like to shine my white light in the world, right? And it is kind of what we are striving for and what we want to create. And Saturn's like, not so fast, right? What are you willing to do to make this real, right? Are you willing to put in the work, right? Right? Are you willing to dedicate your time? Are you willing to sort of practice and train and, be disciplined about showing up kind of on time every week, right? And pain is the payment for each precious thing in life, right? Saturn is like, it ain't no free lunch, right? You got to work for it, right? And so, again, like I'm saying, this transit brings up issues of self-will versus responsibility to ourselves and to others, right? And it's like gratification in the moment versus the long-term goals and what we're willing to do to sort of reach those long-term goals. And how do we hold the balance between both of these? And I think this is really the like meat of this square, right? This tension, right? And like how do we like live our life in the present while also maintaining a view for the future, right? And I don't think that these things are mutually exclusive, but I think that it takes some balancing, right? um and so also with this transit, Saturn is associated with the metal lead, right? Which is incredibly heavy, right? Saturn is time. Saturn is like the lead weight of time pressing down on us, right? And so how do we deal with this pressure? And how might this pressure be helping us to create this vision of ourselves for the future? Right? We may feel like our progress is being blocked this week, right? Or we may feel really low energy. And there's a couple of themes of low energy this week, so just be aware of that, right? These feelings of like low energy or this pressure might make us want to quit. I've had the sun or I've had Saturn squaring my sun in my natal chart for a little while, and that like during the times that the square was exacting, I definitely like wanted to quit everything I was doing, right, and run away. And then I remembered that like, oh yeah, I know astrology and this is one of those themes. So how do I like just be with this pressure, right? And not let it crush me, right? How can we sit with this pressure and see what emerges, right? So this is maybe not a great week to make impulsive decisions, is one of the things that I want to put out there, right? And so I think the goal of Saturn, right, is to help us to get the most off, help us to sort of bring the most authentic parts of ourselves out through all the pressure that it exerts. Oh, thank you so much. Right, as Saturn is like applying all this pressure to us, and we're like, oh, I don't know if I can take it anymore, right? It like really brings up like what is most important, what is the most valuable for us. I have a friend, Daisy Campbell, who is a playwright, and one of the things that Daisy was saying in, the construction of a narrative, right, especially constructing characters, right, in storytelling, you can really like know who a character is by putting more and more pressure on them. And it's the way that they respond under immense amount of pressures that reveals a character's true nature. And so I think this is how Saturn helps us to understand our true selves, right? Um, as we face these challenges and pushbacks and roadblocks, right? This really helps us to know what's important, right? And who we really are. Because it's easy to be whoever you want when things are easy, right? We're just like coasting along, like keep on trucking, everything's chill. But under pressure, when we're challenged, when we're blocked, right? The deeper parts of ourselves that emerge that give us an opportunity to really get to know who we are and to work with these parts of ourselves. And so I think that this square confronts us with our limitations. This can be very frustrating, right? And so how and it's within our limitations that we're really able to direct our energy. Right, it is Saturn. I like to think about as a container, right? And it's the container and the structure and the limitations that really help us to find our solar light and to help it to shine, right? And Saturn says that digging 30 shallow holes is never going to get us a well, right? Saturn says you get three chances to hit water, start digging, right? And so it provides us these restrictions in this container that helps us to hold and to shine our light, right? One last thing is that this transit can bring up feelings of depression, right? Again, low energy, feeling like things aren't working, feeling like there's a lot of pressure. And, this can be depressing, right? Low energy, it's, ugh, right? And depression doesn't really feel that great, right? But I think depression or the feelings of depression cause us to slow down and really sit with something, right? Depression says there's something here that needs to be witnessed. There's something valuable at the bottom, right, of this like heaviness that if we take the time and slow down and allow ourselves to be quiet and listen really hard, right, we can hear its call and connect with the riches that are sort of at the bottom of this low energy feeling or this heavy feeling, right? So this, I think Saturn is also providing us this opportunity through like the obstructions that it puts up, right? And this helps us to kind of notice what is sort of emerging under this pressure, right? And allows us the opportunity to get into alignment with the person that we want to become, right? And also, Saturn is the reality principle, so it helps us to be grounded and to think about the consequences of our activating events and our belief systems, right? And it helps us to come back into reality from the kind of inflation and storytelling of the Mercury Jupiter opposition, right? And Saturn, the square from Saturn helps us to ask the question, what's really going on right now? Um, Oh yeah, and Lynn saying that Saturn opposing natal Sun right now, yeah, deep introspection, right? Feeling that sort of weight, which can feel really shitty, right? But being able to maybe like reframe that belief system, right? Oh, I don't have any energy, this is bad, I'm a bad person, into oh, like this is I'm allowing space for this pressure to help like an authentic part of myself to emerge. Okay. Moving right along, Thursday, December the 5th, we have the Mercury Cazimi. This is Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius, conjunct the Sun at 14 degrees and 21 arc minutes of the mutable fire sign of Sagittarius, the most philosophical of all the signs. So I've heard it said. Oh, hold on. Yeah. And I've got Jim Jams saying in the northern hemisphere it's the yin time of year, time to go inward and to rest and do less in order to conserve our chi, which I agree with. And also in our late stage hive-paced capitalist world, there's not a lot of respect for the yin going inward and individuals gathering their chi or their energy. There is a lot of pressure to always be producing and achieving. And so I think it can be very challenging to hold both of these. But I think this is a lot of the theme of the week. How do we hold two things, right? How do we hold the multiplicity? How do we hold our need to sort of go inward and rest with the external, more yang demands of production and late stage capitalism, right? And so maybe the Mercury retrograde will help us to illuminate this, right? So the Cazimi, which is Mercury going into the heart of the sun, is a moment of clarity during the retrograde. This is I see this as the reset of the Mercury Sun synodic cycle. We get sort of two conjunctions in the Mercury cycle because Mercury is only about, I don't know, 20 degrees, 28 degrees on either side of the sun, right? So it's sort of slingshots back and forth. right? It never gets further away. It never gets to the sextile. And so we get kind of the superior conjunction when Mercury is direct and moving faster than the sun. Then it hits their point of greatest elongation, meaning that's where the elastic like is stretched all the way out, and then Mercury goes retrograde and goes backwards and comes and makes an inferior conjunction, meaning that they are between us and the sun. And then that is the Cazimi or the retrograde conjunction. And then they pass on until their greatest elongation the other way, and they come back, and that is the Mercury cycle, sort of just looping around the sun, right? So during the inferior conjunction in this Cazimi moment, Mercury passes between the sun and the earth. And so Mercury in mythology, the psychopomp and the messenger, right, is sort of mediating the information between the earth and our terrestrial reality and the creative, energetic potential of the sun, right? And so we can consider Mercury in the fire sign of Sagittarius, right? And how the sun is this sort of divine fire, right? And how does this fire, right, of the sun enter into our lives? How do we experience the fire here on planet Earth, right? The sort of fire of the soul, of our passion, the fire of our minds, right? Ideas and consciousness, right? And so also the connection with the sun through the food that we eat, which is stored solar energy that has been stored in plants, right? And then the actions that we take, which is bringing that energy into our systems. Right? The sort of solar energy that unlocks through our eating of plants and animals that eat those plants, which gives us energy, which allows us to take actions in the world, which affects change, right? And so to think about, Mercury kind of mediating this communication between us and the sun, or our like sense of solar identity. This is me and the greater sun, right? The life giver in the sky. Right. And as Mercury moves into the center of the sun and comes into this perfect alignment between us and that sort of source of light, right, it allows this not only illumination of inner parts of ourself, but also an identification and a connection and recognizing, oh, like, where is the sun in me, right? What is that like connection that I have to this creative, energetic source in the sky? Right. And how can I take action to honor that connection? And how do I take action to honor the sun in myself? Right. And how can this connection between Mercury and the sun help to bring our inner fire and desires into alignment with the life-giving fire of the sun? Right. And so during the Cazimi moment, this conjunction, there is an opportunity to plant a seed of awareness and bring our inner light into alignment with the creative and generative light of the sun. This also provides an opportunity to bring into awareness the hidden parts of ourselves, right? And so this Cazimi moment is occurring in the second decan of Sagittarius, and this is thought of as the Lord of Strength, right? And so I just wrote an article about the second decan of Sagittarius for the Astrologers Co-op, which should be coming out, I don't know, in a week or so. So I'll put links to that when it comes out. But I've been thinking about the second decan of Sagittarius a lot, right? And this is where this Cazimi is happening, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting, right? And so the second decan of Sagittarius symbolizes some struggle, right? This is where we are called on to use our strength. And one of the ways that I think about this is, the kind of archetype of the archer, right? Who is shooting their arrow at the target. This is a very Sagittarian vision, right? And we are, kind of taking aim at the target, what our goal is, what our desire is, right? And then in the second decan of Sagittarius, it's like we start hitting challenges, right? Maybe you're sitting there with the bow in tension, right? And being like, oh, this is like really hard, right? And we need to call on our strength and our fortitude to stay focused on the target. I also like to think about this as the arrow that has been shot that is hitting like wind resistance and gravity, right? And on its way to the target, right? If you think about yourself as the tip of the arrow, right? Wind whipping you in the face and needing to call on our strength to maintain direction and trajectory, right? To maintain that focus on our goals, despite the challenges and obstacles and gravity and resistance, right? And so I think that the second decan of Sagittarius really calls on us to cultivate the strength to stay the course, even though we might face adversity and challenges. And it brings up themes of resilience, right? Which I don't know, you can read the article when it comes out where I talk a lot more about it. But I think that the seed is planted in this moment of tension, right? In this moment that really requires strength and fortitude to stay focused on the target, to stay focused on the goal. So, I think that we have this opportunity, this sort of clarity of like, oh, maybe I've lost the plot, or maybe it's difficult, or man, this is challenging. But like, what is that goal, right? Like, what is that thing that I've always wanted? Or like, what is that internal thing, that like sense of self, the capital S self, right? This like authentic, like beam of light that lives within me, right? That like knows the map, that knows the way, right? How do I leave a little space to reconnect with that and have the strength and fortitude to sort of allow myself to come into alignment with that beam of light that lives within me, that drop of the divine that like really knows the answer and knows the way. Right. And to have the strength to sit with that and be with that because it seems irrational or illogical. But I think during this Kazemi moment, it's an opportunity to really reconnect with that divine part of the self that has this sort of that knows what the target is, that knows where we're going, that knows where to shoot the arrow. Okay, I'm starting to run out of time. Sorry, sorry, I'm a talker. But I want to cover this one at least. Friday, December the 6th, we have Mars stationing retrograde in Leo. This is happening at 6 degrees and 10 arc minutes of the fixed fire sign of Leo. Oh, thank you, Marie. It's nice to see you there. I love you. Y'all should check out Marie Sue's music because it's fantastic. Maybe I'll play some on my radio show this week. It's good to see you there, my friend. Okay. Friday, December the 6th, Mars station retrograde in Leo, 6 degrees and 10 arc minutes of Leo. Mars will be moving back into Cancer on January 6th of 2025, and Mars will be retrograde until February the 23rd of 2025 when they station direct at 17 degrees and 0 arc minutes of the cardinal water sign of Cancer, which is a sign that Mars is in their fall. So not really having a good time. And then they're going to be up in Cancer all the way until April the 17th. So get ready for that. All right. Um, but we'll be talking about this more and more and more as that retrograde process deepens. But starting off in Leo, right, which is a sign of authenticity ruled by the sun, right? So Leo is focused on self-expression and individuality, right? Mars in Leo is taking action to express our individuality and our belief in personal freedom, right? Mars is our willpower, and in Leo, that willpower is directed towards self-expression. There's a sense of sovereignty with Leo. This is where we are expressing our unique and creative gifts, right? Mars here is taking action to express ourselves as the divine child. Look at me. This is what I did. Aren't I special? Love me. Love me. Right. And so when Mars goes retrograde, we might be reimagining or rethinking our martial behaviors, right? The actions that we take, right? The and also the ways that we are taking action to support our self-expression, right? Do I want to do this? Why am I doing this? Is this important? Is this impressive? Right? So Mars is separating and cutting, right? And so the experience of separation helps us to access our sense of individuality, right? The very in the beginning, there was you as a little baby. right? You took a breath and they cut your umbilical cord, which separates you from the mother, right? From the person who gave birth to you, right? This is a Mars act of separating, of, right, identifying you as an individual being because of this separation, because of this cutting, right? And then we have our Mars return at age 2, right? Where Mars makes it all the way around the zodiac, comes back to its natal place in the chart, right? And this is when little humans start to walk typically and learn the word no, right? So walking is again like separating from the parent that is carrying them, right? Happy Monday, happy Moon Day. Right. So learning to walk is like another act of separation, another like active individuation, right? Saying no, right? No, cutting that off, right? Even if you don't mean it, it's like, no, I have agency, I have autonomy. Fuck that, right? This is again like individuality, right? Having individual goals, competing and winning, these are all martial things, right? Separating ourselves from the crowd, separating ourselves from the herd, right? Standing out, right? And these are all kind of the Mars characteristics, the separating quality that helps us to express our unique and solar self. Right? With the retrograde, we are reconsidering what we are separating from and why. Right? How does this reinforce my sense of self? Right? And are we just cutting things off because we are frustrated? Right? Or are we cutting ourselves off from systems of support because of some unbalanced sense of individuality? Or are we like cutting ourselves either physically, emotionally, or mentally because we are frustrated because we don't know where to go or what to do or how to express ourselves? Right? Um, so you know, one of the things that happens in the Mars retrograde cycle is that it occurs a week or two after the trine to the sun. Mars is one of the first superior planet in the sense that it is outside of the orbit of the sun. Mercury and Venus are both tied to the orbit of the sun, and so they don't make it all the way around the zodiac. They never have an opposition or a trine to the sun, right? But Mars is the first one who is liberated, right? Who can make an opposition to the sun. So the retrograde begins about a week after, a week or two after a trine to the sun, and then we have the opposition, and then it ends around the second trine to the sun, right? A trine again, like a harmonious aspect, right? And so we had Mars trine the sun about last week, right? And so it can be an influx of energy and excitement and enthusiasm. And then we hit that retrograde, right? We've been coasting along, and like all of a sudden we hit that retrograde and we lose energy and motivation, right? All of a sudden we lose focus or interest in projects or activities or relationships or the things that were exciting to us, right? And so we can, change direction and like what we're interested in, or just lose steam altogether, right? This can make us feel lackluster, lazy, frustrated, right? And feeling like we're lacking energy, especially in our hustle culture, can also lead to feelings of depression, low self-esteem, low self-worth. So just be aware of that, right? Coming up into this next week, especially with that Sun squaring Saturn, right? And the Mars retrograde, like low energy. And, fortunately, it's kind of the end of the year and there's low expectations. But I tell you what, when I like don't have any energy, I start being like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Right? And I start Googling symptoms on like WebMD, low energy, not feeling like it. And then, like, 2 hours later, I'm in an internet rabbit hole where I've got Ebola, cancer, right? And like rare, immune deficiency, right? And so, like, I think that feeling low energy can make us feel bad, right? Not just like, oh, I feel bad in my system, but I feel bad about myself, right? Because I'm not meeting societal expectations or my own expectations. So just like be gentle, because this is where that like Mars fire, that Mars, cutting can turn inward. Oh, I'm a bad person, right? I'm not good enough, right? Something is wrong with me, right? And so I think another thing that can happen, right, when we're in feelings of depression, low self-esteem, low self-worth, this can be a period of reaction rather than action, right? And how this manifests personally will depend on the house in your chart where Mars is going retrograde, right? And if you are interested in learning more about that, you can hit up a qualified astrologer like this guy or, some other ones that are out there. And if you're curious, I can give you a list. Um, also the houses that Mars rules in your chart may be affected, right? So let's talk about, why, like what's going on with this retrograde a little bit more, right? This can lead us to reconsider what we are willing to fight for, right? Mars is a planet of fight and conflict, right? So we are going to be rethinking where we are directing our energy, right? Who like rethinking or reconsidering who we are fighting, what we are fighting for, why we are fighting, right? And we might be reconsidering the moral implications of our actions. And I think that because this retrograde is kicked off by this trine from the sun, right? There is a heroic quality, right? Mars taking action to fulfill the will of the sun. And then, like, all of a sudden, it hits this brick wall, and it's like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? You know? Um, oh, and Gina Maria is saying that I do awesome readings. Thank you so much. I love doing readings, right? But I think Mars kind of running out of steam can like really make us question that heroic impulse, right? Um, what we are kind of working for, and what is this idea of like, like me as the hero, right? The hero of my story, right? And I think in the retrograde, this might mean making sacrifices, right? In some cases, it might be taking direct action, right? The Leo is connected with the heart, right, and courage, right? So thinking about what it means to be heroic, what it means to have courage, right? And what heroic actions do we want to emulate, and what types of behavior do we want to cut out, right, or separate from to give ourselves a new opportunity to grow and a new direction to take action in, right? And I think that Mars again is cutting. And so during the retrograde, as we are rethinking, reconsidering, reimagining, it might help us to rethink the path that we are cutting forward, right? And the path that we are clearing. And also past experiences or memories or connections may reemerge to help us to clear out some old energy and to cut a new path forward, right? So we also maybe reconsidering where we are directing our will, right? Mars has this dual nature of sort of the survival drive, right? Of no matter what, I'm going to like make it work. And then this also kind of maybe like more moral and societal context, right? So we might be rethinking our martial drives and deciding where we want to put our energy and direct our will towards, right? And I think that this martial split, right, between the defending and creating civilization, right, and being like, I just need to survive, right, is kind of accentuated by the Mars-Jupiter opposition. And the last thing that I want to say about this, because I have a ton of notes, is another way that I'm thinking about Mars. Ooh, what's up, Sarah? Sarah Janes, nice to see you. I'll call you. I'll text you. I want to talk to you. Me and Sarah Janes are going to be doing a retreat in Greece in the spring, talking about the water element and sacred waters in Greece. Or I guess that's in September. I don't know if there's still spots for that, but I'm super excited for that. Anyway, one of the last things that I want to say about this Mars retrograde is as we are redoing and rethinking and reimagining where to put our will and rethinking about who we are fighting and reconsidering our struggles, what's worth struggling against. I want to bring in the re word of retreat, right? Which is military tactic, right? And Mars, martial, a war god, right? Dealing with conflict, right? And knowing when to say when and knowing to run away so you can live to fight another day, right? Knowing when, oh, I have put in all of this energy into this thing and it's not working, or I'm being overwhelmed or overtaken, right? And when to say when and to retreat to more stable ground, right? And I went down a big rabbit hole of military history last night looking at tactical retreats, right? And strategic ways of retreating, right? And there's the one of them is the Long March, which is the Chinese Communist Army in 1934 and 1935 went on a 6,000 mile retreat across China when during the Chinese Revolution. And this is a time that Mao Zedong became kind of solidified his role as a leader of the Communist Party. And during this journey, I think it's like, let's see here, did it say how many troops? Anyway, during this journey, the Communist Army, the Red Army, crossed 18 mountain ranges and 24 rivers to reach the Northwest provinces, and this took about a year. Right, and this is a whole kind of like restructuring of your approach, right? Because Mars is like fight, 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 go, 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 right? To hell with the consequences. And then in the retrograde, it's like, okay, what am I doing? And maybe like I need to step back, right? Maybe I need to step way back. Maybe I need to get to high ground and reconsider some things, right? And according to military strategists, retreating does not equate to surrender. A retreat is a tactical strategy where an army withdraws from a battle upon realizing that they are in a dangerous position and resort to safety. After that, they can adopt a favorable position, right? This allows us to pivot and rethink where we are putting our energy. So I want to offer everybody this week the opportunity to retreat, right? And to retreat, not to surrender, not to give up, right? Not because you're a loser, right? But to retreat to a more favorable position so you can reconsolidate your energy and think about where is this best directed so you're not just like throwing your resources at the wall, right? And wasting your energy. Um, Man, I've got a bunch of other stuff to talk about, but I think we have come to the end of our time together this day. Thank you for being here. There's also on Friday we have Venus entering Aquarius. Saturday, the 7th, Venus in Aquarius will conjunct Pluto in Aquarius. That's a big one. Some intensity there, so just be kind to yourselves. And then also we have the Sun in Sagittarius opposing Jupiter in Gemini. Maybe I'll talk about that next week, or you can always listen to my radio show. I do a weekly astrology themed radio show, sometimes weekly, like vaguely weekly astrology themed radio show called the Melee Report. You can find it on SoundCloud at Camp Wizard Camp, and I always put a link in the show notes, or sorry, I always put a link in the show notes for this and also in my stories um, about the radio show so you can tune in. But I'll go over the Jupiter opposing the Sun and Venus conjunct Pluto in the radio show because there's a lot of great Venus Pluto music out there. Yeah, so that's all the astro weather that is fit to print. What about a fucus? I can't talk about a fucus right now. The spooky 13th sign. Um, Actually, Sam Reynolds is doing a talk about a fucus at Norwalk, which I believe is already sold out, which is like kind of bananas. But I don't know. Better luck next year, they say. Um, Yes, Venus in Aquarius. I also have that, and I have Pluto on my Aquarius right now. And Asclepius beckons, right? Yeah, so everybody do your deep dreaming, your deep healing dream rituals. And maybe we'll talk about Asclepius and Fucus next week if you're good, if you're lucky, right? If you listen to what Saturn says, if you eat your vegetables. Anyway, it is my great privilege and pleasure to get to be here with you all to do this each and every week. If you missed this, live or don't feel like watching it on your phone all day, I put this on the YouTube. You can find me at Camp Wizard Camp. There's an archive of all the recordings over there. Eat your lettuce. That's right. Um, I am available for tarot and astrology readings. It is a passion of mine. I think that I'm pretty good at it. If you are curious about how this Mars retrograde might be affecting your life and your vitality, hit me up. You can find me on my website, campwizardcamp.com. You can DM me on the Instagrams. Uh, what else? Yeah, if you, I don't know, there's a lot going on in space. These are trying and turbulent times. If you need a little support, if you need a little help, if you want some clarity, if you just want to talk about astrology, hit me up. This is what I do. This is my passion. It is my love. It is my calling. It is my solar light. So yeah, that's available. I got a Patreon. You can find that at Camp Wizard Camp on the Patreon. You can get the radio show delivered to your inbox each and every week by joining the Patreon at the low level of $3 a month, which is insane. There, you can't get anything for $3 at all. You can't even get coffee for $3 anymore. But you can get my radio show delivered to your inbox each and every week for the low price of $3. And you get the coveted track listings. And other than that, I think that's all the astro weather that's fit to print. Again, it's my birthday next Monday, so I'm not going to be here. You guys can figure out the astrology for yourselves. Just kidding. I'm going to do this on Sunday, probably 2 p.m. Mountain Time, making that 1 p.m. Pacific time, making that 4 p.m. Eastern time. So tune in. I'll probably put something in my stories if I get around to it, reminding you of that. And then, yeah, I'm gonna take my birthday off and just enjoy my life because it's important to do, right? We're all here to enjoy ourselves in one way or another. So yeah, I also suggest that you take my birthday off as well and enjoy yourselves. And to oh, thank you so much. And to all my Sagittariuses out there, hell yeah. Don't let the bastards grind you down. No matter how much Saturn says to eat your lettuce, don't let the bastards grind you down. Keep your eye on the prize. Keep your eye on the stars. And until next time, my friends, may the force be with you. It's great to see everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you next Sunday and have a great week in space.